Welcome back to the Underwater Photography Show. I'm Matthew Sullivan.
And I'm Alex Mustard.
And today we have our second installment of our helpful overlooked accessories for underwater photography. Last time I gave a few of mine. Today Alex is going to give a few of his, and I'm sure we will have more of these videos. But for now, let's get into Alex's.
Right. The first one I was going to say, I think I did mention this when running through my gear, but every time I tell a new person this, and every time they go out and buy one, they talk about how much it transformed their shooting experience. And that is to add a strap to your camera handle, the right hand strap handle on your housing, because it allows you really to shoot the housing with a single hand. And this is the Nauticam one. You don't have to. I know Ultralight have made them in the past, and other housing manufacturers make them too. But what these straps do, and I'm amazed that more cameras don't have them as default, as kind of a default thing, as an included thing, is they allow you to hold the camera without having to hold the camera. So your fingers are completely free to do what you want because the strap is taken away. And I'm obviously not underwater at the moment. My housing is not neutrally buoyant. And obviously, I'm also not going to take very many pictures with that cap on the front of it. But there's not a camera inside it as well before anyone gets too cocky. But this strap, it frees that hand. And it means that this hand is not having to be here. When you don't have this strap, the camera is naturally falling like that. So it's very normal that what you do, can't really get far enough away, is you naturally bring this hand onto this side so that you're pushing the housing together. And you end up being a very two-handed photographer. And that's fine. But there are times when maybe you want to use this hand. Maybe you want to use it because you just need to back up slightly or change your position slightly in the water. Maybe you want to steady yourself with a finger or two on the seabed. And being able to have the camera really as a truly one-handed thing is a really big thing. So I think adding these straps to cameras are really good. I really like the Nauticam one, but actually I have to say I would prefer it if it just came slightly further back on my hand. I like this, it's a little bit far forward, and I kind of keep trying to figure out a way to make it a little bit more based around this position here. I think it would actually grip better. Maybe I'll try that on my next trip and see how it is. But it's probably somewhere between the two it needs to be, actually. Maybe I can find a way to mount it between the two. But I really like it, I really use it, and I really like that as a system, and there it is on my camera. Right. Accessory number 2, and generally I've tried to choose things that are not breaking the bank. It's not like saying, oh yeah, my favorite accessory that you can just add for fun is an FCP. Yeah, it's really useful, the FCP, it's really nice, but it's not one of these overlooked accessories. The next thing I'm going to highlight is this, which are contact cleaning brushes. Actually, one of them is missing from this set. You can buy sets of these brushes for a couple of bucks on Amazon. I'm sure you can buy them in other places too. And you get 3 brushes, one of which is is a steel wire, one of them is a copper wire, and one is a fiberglass or material on it. And all of them are really good for cleaning contacts. And I have to say, anything around underwater photography, electricity and seawater, are not good bedfellows. And traveling with these, they weigh almost nothing. They are so valuable for cleaning a dirty battery contact, cleaning a dirty battery. Just these things, being in hot, wet, humid environments, they get stuff on them. And just being, flash trigger contacts, anything like that that's not performing right, a quick brush with these is often a lifesaver on a trip. And they are one of my favorite things to travel with. I really should order myself a new pack, given how beaten up this one is. But yeah, really valuable thing and cost almost nothing. So have a look for those. They're really, really useful on a trip. Okay, my next accessory is the one that I know that my good friend Nick Moore wouldn't want me to shout about. And the reason for this is about 3 or 4 years, probably longer than that ago now, Nick spotted me talking about this lens and was like, why are you using that? And really was like, oh, Alex, why are you using that? And I explained to him what I was doing. And ever since then, he used it on all his macro dives. And it just makes the difference. So if you're a full frame photographer, One of the problems is that we typically go towards 90 mil, 100 mil, 105 mil macro lenses as our workhorse lenses. And none of these lenses focus really, really close underwater. Whereas if you're a crop sensor camera shooter, you're often using a 60 mil macro lens, which focuses right up almost until the port. And underwater, we don't need to photograph things far away, but it is good to be able to focus really close. And so one thing that I started doing a long time ago is adding an additional close-up lens to the front of my macro lens so that it would focus right up to the port. The limitation of this is it stops the lens focusing really, really far away. But underwater, when do you ever photograph anything with a macro lens that's really, really far away? And the lens I use is a very old one called the Nikon 5T, which is a dual element macro lens. It comes in a massive box, considering the lens inside here is a fraction of the size. I'll open it up so you can see how much padding they give this. They must have ordered a load of these boxes in the wrong size, Nikon, because all the 5Ts come in these. You can pick these up. Nick has bought most of them. He's got a massive stash of them. But you can pick these up on eBay for 20, 30 bucks. No one wants them. And they're very, very good optically. And they come naturally in the thread that fits on a Sony macro lens and a Nikon macro lens as their standard thing. Canon make a lens called the 500D that's similar, and if you need a different size, that one's worth looking at. Nikon makes several of these, but the 5T is the one you want. The 6T is stronger, and you don't want a strong one of these, you want a weak one of these. It just pulls that focus in just the right amount. There's also a 3T and a 4T, but they're for the smaller front element macro lenses. So really, really useful accessory, weighs nothing, really, really, really nice. However, when you put this inside the housing, what you'll find is your macro port doesn't fit anymore, because this makes your macro lens longer by about 3/4 of a centimeter, sort of, whatever that is. So you need to buy a port extension. And the port extension that I use is custom made by Saga. It's the narrowest port extension that you can make for my particular housing. And I had to get this custom made, and lots of my friends have these as well because they all like their 5Ts and they all have these little things. So Saga are used to making these for Nauticam Sony users anyway. It's a very light little ring, and it's just a really useful thing to have as well, because this is a 15, 16 mil extension ring. And that's also really handy when you're trying different lenses from Nauticam and you want to try a different port extension just to maybe see if a dome port works any better. It's really nice to have something that allows you to add a 5. So, if you need a 35 extension, I can use this for the 20 mil, and I've got a 35, whereas everyone else is like, Nauticam actually do make a 35 because it's the one for the FCP, but they didn't before. So, but it's nice to be able to have that for multiple uses. So this is a very useful thing. The only downside of the Saga design is it doesn't have a lock on it. So it doesn't lock the port in place. So you have to rely on your vacuum for that. But yeah, really, really nice. But yeah, so this is really cheap. You do have to spend some money with Saga to get an extension, the thinnest possible extension ring that they can make for the port. But that is then very useful for other things as well. So I really like those two. And yeah, but this is, for me, is the ultimate in undervalued accessory. And what's great about this is you put it on, it gives you the ability to, if you do a lot of macro and you'll be using your standard macro lens, you try and go to 1:1, and you've gone to 1:1, but you still want to get closer. With one of these, you can just keep going in. You put an SMC in front of this, it's absolutely great as well. So, it works really, really well. So I really like that. And it's often, I would say, the vast majority of my macro shots that you've seen are taken through this. It's such a useful accessory. If you're into that smaller stuff, I know, Matt, you shoot a lot of bigger stuff. Yeah. Less useful for you. But if you're into nudibranchs, crabs and shrimps, that sort of things, this is, makes such a difference. Right, my next accessory is a nice, simple, small one. Again, small and light, disguised as a pen. It's called Sensor Clear. And this is from a company that make these lens cleaning pens called Lens Clear pens. And on the end, it's got a little, I don't know how well you can see that, hold it in front of me, it might be better. It's got a little kind of cup of sort of a fuzzy felt type thing on it. And this one is designed for cleaning camera sensors, and it's got a bend in it, so it allows you to put it inside the camera and clean the sensor without putting too much downward pressure on the sensor. If you've got a sensor spot when you're in the field on a long trip and you don't want to have to carry all the stuff with you, this is brilliant. Just in, one dab, the sensor spot is gone, and it's the best field sensor cleaning thing that I've got. This weighs less than a pen. It's just the easiest thing to travel with. And, the reason I like all this small stuff is, this stuff just goes in the spares bag, weighs nothing, takes up no space, and that means more cameras and strobes that I can take on a trip. Another accessory that scores in the lightweight camp, although not in the small camp, is a buoyancy collar. And I think these are really valuable things to have for shooting, particularly with the mirrorless cameras, which I think, because they're a little bit smaller but still got kind of all the same stuff inside them, tend to be a little bit more negative in the water. And I think these are really valuable when shooting macro in a reef environment. On a muck diving trip, I want my camera to be slightly negative. I certainly don't want it to be bulky and not allow me to get the camera right on the seabed. So I never use this on a muck diving trip until it becomes time for doing blackwater night dives, and then I put this back on my camera again. But I also use it quite a lot on reef dives, because most of the time when you're shooting macro on a reef dive, you're not shooting tiny macro, you're shooting fish portraits and that sort of thing. And you're in midwater and the fish are in midwater. So a really neutrally buoyant camera makes a big difference. And I'm a big fan of a buoyancy collar for that. Most cameras, when you shoot a macro lens, tend to be nose heavy. Yep. And this is the perfect counteractant for that. It weighs nothing in your suitcase. You can also maybe use it when shooting split levels or something like that for a little bit of extra buoyancy. It's not the biggest amount of buoyancy in the world, but it's a very useful accessory to have. This one's made, I can't remember who, by Styx Floats. And it's just some Styx foam, but there's plenty of other people who make them with a Velcro lanyard. If you know how to find this foam, and it's pretty easy to find these for absolutely nothing, you could build that up yourself very easily. But just nice and lightweight, easy to travel with. And I have one more for you, and that is a Gorilla Pod. And I think a Gorilla Pod with a strobe mounting ball on the top, this one's got a few extra bits of cable ties that's fallen apart down the years, is a very valuable accessory for doing remote strobe work. It allows you to position the strobe, to wrap it around things. You can wrap it around a beam of a wreck and have it on the ceiling, or you can stand it up. And it just allows you to aim the strobe where you want it, rather than if you rest it on the seabed. Most strobes are round, and they don't sit very well when you rest them on a seabed. Put them on a Gorilla Pod, and they stay where they want to. These are cheap. They're made of plastic, so they're waterproof. Most of them come with a standard 1/4-inch thread on the top. So you just need to buy a mounting ball that fits on a standard 1/4-inch thread, tripod thread, and you're ready to go with one of these. I put the cable ties on partly to keep it together because it's a bit broken, but also it allows you to clip onto things. And so when carrying my strobe down to the wreck, my strobe will be on here. I'll clip the Gorilla Pod to me and I'll clip the strobe to me because I don't want to lose either. And then I'll swim down to the wreck and set up and often if I've got two of them. But Gorilla Pod's very, very helpful and cheap thing. Also look for them secondhand. Loads of people have bought these down the years for land photography, decided they're not really worth having, and you'll find them on eBay for nothing. Yeah. So just, and you're going to use it underwater anyway, so who cares if it's a bit beaten up. Really good thing to have. The mounting ball will cost a little bit more usually. Hard to find a 1/4-inch mounting ball on the second-hand market, so you have to usually pay full price for that. But that really, really good accessory. If your strobes are really buoyant, you might want to have a way to mount a piece of lead on this. But most strobes are slightly negative, so they tend to sit rather nicely on these. If you have a very heavy strobe, you need to use the legs farther apart like that. Otherwise, it will topple over with the strobe being heavy. But most of the time underwater, it works really well. So those are my fun overlooked accessories. I hope that was interesting.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you about that, whatever that pen looking thing was for sure.
Right. Well, if you don't remember, maybe everyone watching, it's called Sensor Clear, made by the same people that make lens clear brushes. And they used to make these fat pens with basically a big version of this for cleaning lenses, and they're just a really nice portable lens cleaner. And then they realized that the material they had was perfect for cleaning sensors, so they made a sensor version. And particularly since I switched to mirrorless, this has become something I always travel with, because I do think the mirrorless cameras do tend to get more muck on the sensors. So yeah, it's a really helpful thing to carry. And yeah, it gets employed a lot cleaning other people's sensors on trips.
Well, hopefully you guys learned some stuff there. Maybe you'll go out and buy some helpful, useful, overlooked accessories. I'm sure we're going to have more of these because either one of us.
I thought about 3 more things during that. I was like, oh, I want to talk about this too.
Yeah, exactly. We said it in the last one, but we'll say it in this one. If you guys have any ideas that you think we can share for the next one of these, please leave them in the comments below, and we will catch you guys in the next one.